Hi there guys, and I'd like to introduce a special issue of Retro Gamer because the PlayStation's on the cover! Oh my god, what's going on? The PlayStation is on the cover, that can't be retro. Well, it obviously is retro because let's face it, it's 20 years old now. And 20 years, you know, that's like 2 decades. So, you know, we've had 8-bit, we've had 16-bit, and they're still going to be in the magazine of course, but this is just to highlight the fact that PlayStation features N64, that era, you'll be seeing a little bit more of it in the magazine. Not overbearingly so, but we wanted to make a big song and dance about it. This isn't really a typical Retro Gamer cover either, and the main reason for that is that when you look at the PlayStation shook up people's conceptions of what games were and what they could be like. Just like you had the big deal when the Atari 2600 came along, and then when the NES came along, and we wanted to highlight that, so we wanted to do something that was a little different from our normal covers. Anyway, you don't want to hear about the ins and outs of all that. You obviously want to see what's inside. So let's take a look, and hopefully I can do this in a way that I'm not going to obscure the camera too much. So let's see. Oh. Okay, so this is our Gaming's Greatest Icons, which will be obviously continuing, and you can expect to feature very, very shortly. This is the contents, and obviously the thing we kick off with is the sad passing of Ralph Baer, who passed away early December. Unfortunately, due to the way deadlines are and everything, this literally happened a couple of days before we go on a press, so we've been able to get something in there, and you know, he's a massive deal who doesn't really get the respect he deserves, so we wanted to make sure that he was in the actual magazine. And this is a look at the new point-and-click adventure that's being made by Ron Gilbert and Gary Winnick. I'm quite excited about that. It's a really cool little interview, and there's obviously a little bit of news here, as you can see that Dale the Tentacle is coming back, so that's pretty cool as well. So Paul Davies has got a column, and we've got our Discuss as well. Hopefully we'll be doing this every month. So you know, if you want to tell us about your thoughts and everything, go over to the forums or on Twitter and Facebook, and obviously the best ones will appear in the magazine. Moving on, this is a look at the Vault and Collector's Corner. Now this is a pretty cool one because this is Mark R. Jones, who used to work for Ocean. And I've met him a couple of times. He's a lovely chap, and he's got a very envious collection. I would love to have even half of what he's got. So one day, hopefully, we'll be able to cover a few more developers. I think it's always nice when the actual guys who make games decide to collect them as well. Okay, this is Matt Gray. Many of you will know him as a C64 musician. He's had a really successful Kickstarter recently, and we were able to talk to him about that. And this is your latest news on from the 90s, and this is December 97. Moving on, this is a Reader Revival courtesy of Brian Day, and it's Drain Mania. I've not played this myself, but it looks like a pretty cool BBC clone. There were quite a lot of these back in the day. We've covered a few of them in the mag, so highly recommended. In fact, they look a bit like the dudes from Space Panic. Okay then, so this is a big feature. It's quite a big feature, and again, the main reason we did this is like 20 years of PlayStation, so we've gone for 20 pages split across 2 articles. We've managed to speak to a huge amount of developers, both in little snippets like this and throughout the actual body text. So yeah, I'm really, really pleased with the way this has turned out. I'm going to move this there a bit more to carry on. So this is basically looking at some of the franchises that first appeared on the PlayStation and how they fared. A look inside the actual PlayStation, some of the reasons how Sony basically made gaming cool. And you know, part of it is basically both Sega and Nintendo had a chance to work on the PlayStation, and they turned it down, and now look how things have panned out. Look at the various DualShock pads across the years. This is 20 general moments in PlayStation history, looking at the brand as opposed to the actual original console. This is me laying a smackdown on our designer, and again, we look at the launch games. It was really, really hard to find this list, and even Sony themselves don't actually have an official list of what came out in the relevant regions. So we've done what we can. It's quite possible that some of them might not be right. So obviously, if you know of any which shouldn't be there, let us know. And then this is the other feature, and as you can see, it's the 20 greatest PlayStation games you've never played. Obviously, it's quite possible you may have played some of them, but I'd argue that there's quite a few cool, obscure ones here. And, I've certainly not played half of them. Although, everybody needs to play Vagrant Story. Vagrant Story is amazing. This looks pretty good as well. I've never played this before, but they had it up running in the office and it looks hilarious. Basically, a little domino, and you have to set up these courses and you have to run along and knock everything down. So that's pretty cool. Bit of Master System love. This is Penguin Land. A really cool little puzzle game. I'm absolutely shit at it, but it is a really, really good little game. Highway Encounter, bit of 8-bit love. This was really popular on the ZX Spectrum. It did come out on other versions, but I think most people remember it being a Spectrum game. It's basically a cool isometric shooter come puzzler. And highly recommended. Okay then, this is you may have remembered that last issue we did Lost in Translation, which was going to be a standalone feature, but we found so many games that we could potentially feature in it that we've got to carry on doing it. So it basically looks at games which came out in Japan and how they would have been changed for other audiences. So for example, in Japan this was known as Commando, but in Germany, because of their regulations with violence and that, all the actual people are changed into robots and stuff. So hey, you can't upset anyone. Moving on, Combat School, great little arcade game back in the day. So we decided to do an alternate guide on it. Interestingly, there was only actual 3 core conversions, not including the disc versions. So yeah, I always thought for some reason that it came out on the NES and that, but apparently it didn't. And we managed to get hold of James Higgin, who did a great job with the Amstrad conversion of the game. Moving on, this is Automata UK. They basically made loads of ZX Spectrum games in the back in the day. They were one of the earliest games developers as well, and Mel Croucher is a really interesting individual, and we did have to censor this picture because the original one was quite rude. So moving on, we've got Eves. I believe it's pronounced Eves. The Vanished Omens on Master System, really good RPG, and which has obviously span out into loads of other sequels across various formats. Okay then, I'm particularly pleased with this. This is our staff writer Nick Thorpe as the Ultimate Dungeon Master. Dungeons & Dragons is 40 years old now. There's been a huge amount of really cool digital games, so we wanted to basically bring that to everyone's attention. We were lucky enough to get hold of guys like Chris Avallone, and I think it's Trent Oster, and I'm just really pleased with this. We've used little bits and bobs from my own personal collection just to make it look a bit different to our other features. And yeah, I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. Okay then, this is Making of Pit Fighter. Obviously, it's quite controversial in that some people don't like it, some people love it. It's obviously aged, but it's important to remember that this was a huge deal when it first came out. And we were lucky enough to speak to not only the guy who made it, but Al Bake, who made the rather impressive Lynx conversion. And due to popular demand, we have included all the conversions of the game, because people wanted to see that. Carrying on with the 8-bit love, we've got Monty Python's Flying Circus, which is it's just really odd. And this is a Minority Report on the Commodore Plus 4, a machine which I'm well aware is not given enough love in the magazine. So here you go. 4 full pages for it. Enjoy. This is Hotline Miami. It looks retro, it's new, but it's rather awesome. If you've not played it, check it out. It's ridiculously violent, but it's absolutely amazing. And carrying on, we've got our Maternal Champions. Now this was really cool. We've managed to speak to Michael Latham, who was basically the key developer on the game, and he sent us this incredible document. It was something like 140 pages. You can see little bits of it here, covering every aspect of it. And yeah, it's rare you see, here's some more stuff looking at the merchandising that was planned. It's rare you see that much level of detail in the game. Characters that, for whatever reason, didn't make the original game, but did appear, I think, in the Mega CD sequel. So that's Eternal Champions. This is an interview with Jez San. He's worked on quite a lot of games. Star Glider was amazing back in the day. He was involved with Star Fox because Argonaut created this Super FX chip that was used in a lot of Super Nintendo games. And yeah, comes across as a really interesting chap. So yeah, I think you're going to enjoy that one. Shanghai Warriors, I've not played it myself, but according to Nick, it's absolutely awful. And our review section, so we've got Super Smash Bros. On Wii U, Geometry Wars, which I really recommend, Lara Croft and the Temple of Osiris, which I don't recommend. Tomb Raider 2 is, quite frankly, abominable on iPad, and Nick was rather fond of Persona Q. Carrying on, we've got the homebrew section. I love the look of this. It's a shame because it's not supposed to be fantastic, but the graphic style reminds me of games like Armalite, which I used to love playing on the C64. Mailbag, and then a look at what's coming next issue. So we've got a Bluffer's Guide to Point-and-Click Adventures, mainly because things like Grim Fandango and that there's a lot of focus on them at the moment. I'm really pleased about this. This is Hired Guns. Been trying to get a making of this for absolutely ages, and we finally tracked the developers down. We take a big retrospective look back at the Game Gear, which will be 25 years old. There's a look back at the history of the Star Wars Dark Forces / Jedi Knight saga, and an ultimate guide to Commando. And much more, including Agent X, Dragon 32, Superbug, Sirius Software, Super Meat Boy, Trantor the Last Stormtrooper, Top 25 ZX81 games, Persona, and what I'm really excited about is Chris Sawyer, because he hardly speaks to anybody, but he was more than happy to chat to Retro Gamer. So so that's your issue for the month. And apologies for, I've gone back down to standard definition simply because HD was taking me something like a day to upload, and I just, well, it was being a pain because everything would cut out and that, so I'm going back to standard definition, and I'm hoping